Now, it is very few and far between that whenever a card is announced, confirmed, and made public that I fall in love with it the second that I read it. And this is one of those cases. What's up, guys? Phoenix here, and the card I'm going to be talking about today in this discussion type video is going to be Twin Twister, what I believe to be a new MST replacement type card that may even possibly phase MST out of competitive play for the first time in over a decade. Now, this card is basically just MST, but twice. It is called Twin Twister. It is a quick play spell card, and its effect is extremely simple. Discard one card, then target up to 2 spell and trap cards on the field, destroy them. Now, this allows every floater strategy, or any deck that even has access to any sort of a floater or replaceable card engine, to play this card instead of Mystical Space Typhoon in the main. Now, because of how generic the card is, it just does nothing but increase its versatility. The same way with Book of Moon and MST and all those older cards, the less text a card has on it, the more versatile the card actually is in terms of the least amount of restrictions on it. Now, this card could have been significantly worse. It could have had to target specifically 2 spells and traps on the field, and not up to 2, and that would open up a host of problems, being that if your opponent is trying to sit on a single floodgate, you would have no potential out to that, and outside of destroying some of your own spells and traps with this card. But since it destroys up to 2 spells and traps, you can basically use it in any situation, and based off whatever deck you're going to be using it in, it's already going to be free. For example, you can play this in Burning Abyss and discard Graf, Seer, Skarm, Kagna, Farfa, any of those dudes, and trigger their effects after destroying 2 cards. That's just a generic +1, depending on which one you discarded. If you're playing any deck that plays the clowns, you can discard Damage Juggler or Trick Clown. Get an immediate +1. If you're playing Necros clowns, or even just straight Necros, you can discard a clown. Or if you're just playing pure Necros, you can discard Ritual spells, pop 2 spells and traps, and then immediately use the Ritual spells effect in Grave to recruit for another one. There are a lot of really neat and nifty applications for this card, and not even specifically in the Tier 1 decks. Even older decks that have been phased out of competitive play, like Mermails, Fableds, every other possible deck that has any sort of card generation engine where you're getting free cards for no reason, or you have floaters that trigger when they're discarded, or just cards that are floating to your hand in general through the aforementioned free card generation, you just have free cards to play this card with. Now, with this card, once it gets printed in Breakers of Shadow, I see no specific reason to play MST anymore in the main deck of anything. Now, we've already gone away from an MST maining format for quite some time. The best decks of the format have been not maining MST for quite a while, because the card isn't a combo card, and if your deck is able to play, you shouldn't need MST. The only times you'll need MST is when your deck isn't allowed to play via floodgates. This card outs that problem, as well as outing 2 threats at once, which is really neat. I really like this card. This card is just amazing. This is a card I've been waiting to get printed for ages. The fact that it's basically just MST, but for 2 cards, because if you're discarding a card for it, most of the time you are able to structure it where you are getting that card discard for free, or it is replacing itself. So that discard as a cost is almost never going to actually matter. Now, of course, there are certain, situational circumstances where you may not have an additional card in your hand to discard, because every card in your hand alongside this card is crucial to whatever play you're trying to make. There may be situations where your opponent only has 1 card and you also don't have anything that you can willingly discard to even just make it a straight 1-for-1. But I mean, those situations are very circumstantial, anecdotal, things like that. And even if you're in those situations where you're only popping 1 card with this, that's still a 1-for-1 if the card that you discarded was a floater. And in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, we are getting more and more just generic floater type cards, even as the Pendulum era comes out. Pendulum monsters, obviously if you discard them, they go to the graveyard, but there are ways that you can recruit those cards from the graveyard. You can do multiple different things to allow this card to be free, and I really like that. The fact that this is basically just a better MST in the strictest of functionality, and the fact that even if you're not trying to hit back row with this card, you can just clear Pendulum Scales with this. So decks that can't 100% use Wavering Eyes, or even decks that can, you just have another card that clears 2 spells and traps for virtually free. So I mean, I want to know what you guys think about this card in the comments down below, but I absolutely love this card. I cannot wait for it to come out. And basically, I see, as I've already said, no reason to ever main MST anymore if you're playing any sort of deck that has floaters in it, because this card is just superior in every single way. And if you were going to main deck a card, it was going to be this, and you'd probably side MSTs. But that's my own personal opinion, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that this card is just 100% better than MST. We've seen it many times in the game's, past history, with like 7 Tools and Wiretap, Sakuretsu Armor, and D-Prison, things like that. There are just cards that come out that are strictly better versions of previously printed cards. Senju of the 1,000 Hands, Manju of the 10,000 Hands, strictly better than Senju, but they were, it was printed, and it's just an upgrade. Things like that. Things like that happen in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's been a long time since MST was released, and this is the card that closestly matches what MST does in the game, but does it strictly better in terms of it's 1 out to 2 cards. But as I've already said, I want to know what you guys think about this card in the comment section down below. I'm sorry I haven't done any videos for the past couple of days. I've been actually really busy making my own Halloween costume from scratch, and it's taken up all of my time the past 3 days. And I just couldn't get anything uploaded, or any discussion videos, films, or anything, but hopefully we're going to get back on that relatively soon, especially, after Halloween and the month of November starts. I will have virtually nothing but time to be doing things like that. But overall, yeah, like I've said, this is like the 3rd time I've said it. I want to know what you guys think about this card down below. If there's any other cards you want me to talk about from the upcoming Breakers of Shadows set, leave them down below as well. Links are in the description to both my Facebook pages. If you want to chat with me, you can go do anything with those. As always, comment, rate, subscribe, like the video if you like the content I've been producing and want to support my channel's growth now as well as in the future. Click on that if you have not. I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me make money, and there's no reason to lie to you guys about that. If you have an ad block enabled, just take a couple seconds, disable your ad block, refresh the video, put your ad block back on. It would help me out more than you could ever know, and if you want to support me, that is going to be the best way at the current point in time to do so, and it helps me out more than you could ever know, and I would be greatly appreciative. But that is all for this video. It's not much, but it's just what I needed to get filmed quickly to start putting out videos going forward. I have a couple more discussion videos lined up to be filmed and go up as well, and then I will start going back on DEVpro and doing more duel puzzles, and then doing more duels with people that are trying to request them. But anyway, as always guys, take care.